NoogaRadio 92.7 FM, 95.3 HD4 is the clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Sam Jordan filling in for Keon, who's got a week off. He's on a Facebook assignment. And we're glad to have you along wherever you may be, around the world or just here in the Tennessee Valley. And we've been talking high school sports. We've been talking college sports. And that's only just in the first hour. And as you know, Nooga Radio 92.7 and 95.3 HD4, and, of course, our website at NoogaRadio.com. We're on Facebook Live. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, wherever it may be. You can find us somewhere out there. And NASCAR was happening in Texas. And the one thing that I've got to say, I have to give a lot of kudos to the officials at Texas Motor Speedway. Every time when there's a winner with their NASCAR, events that they have going on there. This year it's the Monster Energy Series. Before that, it was the Sprint Cup, and even before that, we had the Winston Series. That was the chief sponsor. But they've always had at Texas Motor Speedway where 2 6-shooters, they'll fire them off, the winner will, in Victory Lane. Well, because of what happened yesterday in Sutherland Springs, Texas, where an individual killed 26 people at a church there in Texas, NASCAR and the officials at TMS decided, well, we're not going to do what we have had our winning drivers do with shooting off the 6-shooters. And I've got to give them a lot of credit for that. And being sensitive to the issues at hand, sometimes sports has to take a back seat. And definitely yesterday was the case, with everything going on and being as close that the incident was of not doing something like that and really causing a lot more flap. Like the NFL has been taking a lot of grief, and some of it deservedly so, in my opinion, by the NFL players kneeling during the national anthem or not even being on the field. It's unfortunate how that incident has transpired over the season because of one individual. And it's really gave a lot of bad publicity for the NFL. And even myself, who I'm a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. I grew up watching the Dallas Cowboys, supporting the Dallas Cowboys. I've got Cowboys polo shirt. I've got banners. All kinds of Cowboys memorabilia. And I've followed them ever since I was a little kid growing up in the Little Rock area. And, with that, I've got to commend Jerry Jones for saying, well, if any of his players were going to kneel, then they're going to be finding themselves another job somewhere. And it ain't going to be with the Cowboys. So I've got to give Jerry Jones a lot of credit for that, for standing his ground. But in the same vein or the same sense, I'm really proud of NASCAR doing what they did and saying, well, we're not going to fire off those 6-shooters. And it's been a long tradition, that's happened at Texas Motor Speedway. So, we're thankful that they were able to do that. Jimmy Johnson, 7-time NASCAR Cup champion for an 8th. He's had a off and on season. And after the race there in Texas on Sunday, it's kind of looking tough for him right now. He's trailing by 51 points and making it into the final playoff spot. Brad Keselowski is the next one in line for that 4th and final slot. And He's got Denny Hamlin that's right on his heels, hot on the heels, really. 19 points back is Denny Hamlin. Then one of Youngstown, Ohio's very own Ryan Blaney, who is driving the Wood Brothers car, number 21. He's 22 points back. So that's how tight it is. And then you got Chase Elliott, who has took the seat that Jeff Gordon used to have, the number 24. And he's back 49 points. But Jimmy Johnson, he's back just 2 points further with 51 points of being outside of the playoffs. So with that being said, Phoenix is going to be an interesting race, to say the least. And then they'll wrap things up at Miami Homestead Speedway down in South Florida to finish out the NASCAR season. So we've only got 2 more weeks of NASCAR action. And then the silly season will really kick into gear because there's a lot of shuffling that's going to be coming up. You've got Dale Earnhardt that's retiring, and it may be because of health issues. He's been NASCAR's most popular driver for many, many years. And he kind of took that, from his dad. I mean, of just really being a fan favorite. And, with Gordon, he retired last year. Tony Stewart also retired, who's just staying on the ownership side of things. Gordon still has an interest in the Jimmy Johnson car. So, that has been, something for him. And with Gordon being in the TV booth now, providing some good insight as well. Dale Jarrett, has been doing that. Rusty Wallace. Rusty doing a lot now on the radio side, the broadcast and stuff. So it's good to have that driver perspective as well. So, we're doing a transition where drivers are, the older ones are stepping aside, letting the young bucks in there. Ryan Blaney, outstanding, awesome family. Dave Blaney, who's been in NASCAR for a long time. Him and his wife, they own a track just over the Pennsylvania line over near Youngstown. And every once in a while, you'll see Ryan at the track. I had that pleasure here earlier in the year when I was still up there. And I was also working at one of the area tracks at Mercer Raceway Park. And every once in a while, I would get a chance to go over to Sharon Speedway. And that's the other track. Even though Sharon is in Pennsylvania, the track is actually just over the line in Ohio, near Youngstown. So, and it's owned by Dave Blaney and his family, and they always put on a great show for the fans, and they bring in some good purses as well. And we've got good tracks around here. The dirt track scene has been one thing that I've really enjoyed being a part of over the years. Never really got into racing per se. I mean, I've always followed NASCAR, but as far as dirt track racing, that's been in the last 10 years. And I've had the distinct pleasure of working at Clinton County Raceway, also up in New York State at Jamestown, New York, there with State Line Speedway, which is right on the PA-New York line. And then also here this past season at Mercer, there in Western PA, just north of Pittsburgh. And I'm hoping to be able to get around to some of the tracks here in our area, gradually learning where those tracks are at. So it's good to be a part of the racing community. Well, we found out that NASCAR is going to be starting their 2018 races 30 minutes earlier. And 12 of those 36 races are going to be 30 to 60 minutes earlier, including the 7 races in the Eastern time zone, which would include Pocono, New Hampshire, at Charlotte, Miami-Dade, and, of course, with Talladega, where they're going to be starting earlier. So that I think is going to be a big help. I mean, a lot of the races, they would get underway at 3 o'clock, and that's where those 7 races in the Eastern time zone, like Dover and stuff, that start at 3, that's where they will be starting 30 to 60 minutes earlier. There'll still be a lot of races where they'll start at 1 o'clock as well, but the entire race schedule will be coming out here shortly with exact times and exactly who the particular race sponsors are. So, it's going to be an interesting final 2 weeks. Like I said, they're at Phoenix this coming weekend, and then they'll wrap things up at Miami-Dade Speedway down in South Florida. So Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., and right now that 4th place is Brad Keselowski, but Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, and Jimmy Johnson still have a chance to knock Keselowski out of the picture. If I had to pick out of any of those, I would probably root for Ryan Blaney, because Blaney's had a very good season and has shown what they say is flashes of brilliance at times. So, it'll be good to see, how this all wraps up. And, of course, you can always catch your NASCAR racing action right here on your NASCAR racing station, NoogaRadio 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. So, and if you want to talk about NASCAR, well, you can give us a call here at 423-800-8949. 423-800-8949, and talking about NASCAR. One of the things that, I've always questioned or, discussed amongst other media members is how much longer do you think we'll end up seeing the Truck Series? Camping World Truck Series has been around for a number of years, and, it's different kind of racing in a lot of different ways. The Xfinity Series, NASCAR is trying to clamp down to make sure that they keep that pure for the non-veterans per se, and they're trying to make where there's more rules that the NASCAR veterans that are on the Monster Energy Series can race only a certain amount of races before they have to say, "Whoa, that's it." No more. This is more for the development stages with the nationwide, or the Xfinity Series, I should say. It's just, I think that none of the NASCAR veterans should be able to race in the Xfinity Series. That's just my opinion. I think that purely ought to be the development league per se for auto racing. And, with that being said, it's a huge commitment for race teams. I mean, we're spending millions of dollars per race car. And, for the sponsorships that are involved, with the top-notch drivers that are out there. I mean, there's a lot of drivers out there. Casey Kane is one ride in particular that is going to be looking for a new ride. He's getting replaced from the Hendrick organization with the new driver next year. They're bringing on newer drivers that have earned their way, from working in the Xfinity Series. And even before that, when it was known as the Nationwide, and before that, when it was the Busch Series, let that be a pure development league for the upper echelon. When drivers aren't getting the wins or the top 5 or even top 10 finishes, if they're not doing what is expected from the ownership, all right, next man up or next woman up. Danica Patrick, though, could be looking elsewhere. Stuart Haas is more than likely going to let her contract run out, so she will be an available free agent. And as we said, Casey Kane is looking for a ride. There's several other top-name drivers that are out there. Ryan Newman getting displaced out of his ride. So, it's like, what have you done for me lately? is the kind of attitude that prevails in sports, whether it's auto racing, baseball, basketball, football, you name it. And, it just makes perfect sense that if we keep that second level as a pure development league for the NASCAR series, I think that it will be a very fruitful and productive division in auto racing in the professional ranks. And then, of course, you've always got IndyCar. Then you've got the racing action that happens overseas. Even with the IndyCar division, they have races that are over across the pond. But, it just, there's hot rods and all kinds of different classes. And of course, with NASCAR, even though we only hear about the Monster Energy Series, then you got Xfinity, and then you got the Camping World Truck Series. It goes even further yet down below with other divisions, with the Whelen Series, that's more of a regional class, and then you've got SCCAs that are out there performing all around the country, but more so out west in the California, Nevada, Arizona areas, with some of the lower divisions of auto racing. And then you get down to basics with the dirt track racing or even with the asphalt racing. So we have a phone call. Let's check in, find out. And good evening. You're on the Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Sam Jordan. And what's your question or comment? Hello?
Hey, Sam. So you were talking about NASCAR and the racing community, and I've had this question for a while because I've been trying to follow NASCAR. NASCAR, to me, has been implementing far too many rule changes, and that's something that I'm confused by, because what are they attempting to do with these rule changes?
Well, most of the time with the rule changes, and that's a very good question, caller, they're trying to make it to where it's more competitive, not just for the cars themselves, but trying to make it more intriguing for the listener or the viewer that's watching the race on TV. And they're trying to make it an even playing field. In my opinion, sometimes if it ain't broke, why fix it? But sometimes I think NASCAR tries to fix things, and they ought to leave their hands off. But, with the playoff series that they've made changes even over the last couple of years with that. I'm not really crazy about the formula that they've got now as far as how they determine who's going to be in the playoffs. But, they've reduced the number of cars that are participating in a race each week from 43 down to 40. They actually would like to get that down to around 35 or 36. And the reason behind that is you've got a lot of start and park teams that, may not have the big dollar sponsorships, but, they want to be on the big level and, try to play with the big boys. And, so they go around for one lap, they pull it in. Sometimes you got teams that can afford the extra fuel to, do maybe half the race. So, but, like I said, NASCAR, has reduced the number of cars. They've tried to make more technical changes, trying to improve the sport and how it's perceived by the public. With the reduced amount of dollars that are out there as far as with sponsorships, you've got maybe 50, 60 different companies out there that can afford to play the game of being a sponsor in NASCAR. So, NASCAR is trying to tweak things. And like I said, possibly, they're playing too much with the formula and maybe messing it up a little bit. But what's your thoughts? What do you think are some of the changes that may not have been a good idea to do?
For me, the thing that I'm personally not particularly interested in is dividing the race up into quarters. And that to me,
right,
feels like an attempt to make the race more like a football or a basketball that's divided in that way. It runs counter to racing in my mind. And I think that that's a big change. It's a really big change with how you do wind up totaling points, and maybe it might add a little bit more mid-race drama, but it feels like a cheap addition, not necessarily one that's particularly substantial. And I think that a lot of NASCAR fans are people who have been fans forever. And if you're going to do something like that, I think you need to make sure that your original base, your original group of fans, you don't alienate those people in an attempt to try and grab more fans.
Right.
And I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, having the three different breaks in it, yeah, I mean, you're going to have a little bit of a break. I mean, it's going to benefit the driver because, you know, I've never been in a race car. I mean, two of my sons, you know, both raced on the dirt track level and everything. And when I've talked to them, you know, when they have been in a race car, you know, when you've got that jumpsuit on, that's fire retardant. I know when I used to be a fireman in the EMT, you know, when you have to wear fire retardant clothes, it's heavy. And when you're sitting in a car, you're basically baking, wearing, you know, that fire retardant suit. So, you know, it's helpful for the drivers and maybe helpful for the crew chiefs and the mechanics and stuff that are with those teams. And if they need to make some tweaks to try to make their car a much better car, yeah, that's good. But I think that, hey, let's go green to green, or green to checker, that is, and have fun watching it and see what happens. I mean, but, you know, I will say this. I think that we've seen more cautions and more bigger wrecks since they've made this change to go into breaking it up into thirds throughout the race, especially at Talladega. I mean, they had a lot of cautions at that racetrack, and I mean, you never know what's going to happen at Talladega. That's the unexpected track that will give you some excitement and thrills. Could see people get hurt, which you don't want to see, but it just seems like, you know, since they went and broke this up into different segments, we've seen more cautions and more big wrecks than what we've been seeing over the years. Maybe that's what they're thinking of trying to make NASCAR a lot more fun to watch. I don't know.
Well, it's like you said, you'd hate to see someone be put in danger, and then there's a certain level of thrill that you do want to see, but you don't want to see at the expense of one of the drivers. I don't think, and anytime you change a rule in any sport, you can historically go back and check it out. Like you change a little thing, and it'll have a big impact later on, right? Like once upon a time, the NBA didn't have a 3-point line. Once you add that, maybe you don't know what the impact of that is. Like a team like the Warriors couldn't even exist without something like that.
Right.
But it is like you didn't just tweak the rules, you radically changed them, and we don't know. Like we're starting to see some of the impacts, like we said, more cautions on a lot of these races, but we don't even know what positive impact this is going to have for
the Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, NoogaRadio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
All right, caller, thank you. Got a good break.
Chattanooga, NoogaRadio, digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Man was cut down by gunfire on Baldwin Street last night, and the police say they've made an arrest. Jamal Mays taken into custody. This is not his first run-in with the law. He's charged with criminal homicide, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. The victim has been identified as 39-year-old Willie Bacon. Initially, the fire department was called to the scene on a report of an unconscious man, but they quickly discovered he had several bullet holes in him, and he was dead. A motorcyclist, Gary Fitch, who's 37, was seriously injured after the traffic investigators say he lost control of his motorcycle on Wilcox Boulevard. It left the roadway and then skidded along the road on its side with the rider still on it. Came to a stop eventually, leaving a deep trough in the dirt. Mr. Fitch taken by EMS to the hospital with serious injuries. Russell Stroud, NoogaRadio News. now.
Traffic, news, and information. NoogaRadio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
An automated nuclear missile defense system has suddenly entered into launch mode, and you are the only one who can stop it. Escape Experience Chattanooga. Your team has just been infected with a deadly virus. Your only hope there, an abandoned farmhouse. Escape Experience Chattanooga. Handcuffed in a maximum security prison, you have an hour to flee. Escape Experience Chattanooga. These escape scenarios and more at Chattanooga's best escape room, game, and team building platform. Call now. Slots are limited. Register online at escapeexperience.com/Chattanooga. Escape Experience Chattanooga.
Goss Insurance. Yes, we are local. And no, we don't have an 800 number. In fact, our mobile numbers are on our business cards. We live, work, play, and worship in Chattanooga, and we would love to help with your insurance. Business, auto, home, life insurance. Call now, save money. Call Goss Insurance for all your insurance needs. Goss Insurance, 875-2500. 875-2500.
NoogaRadio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. NoogaRadio. 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. News Talk. NoogaRadio.
NoogaRadio 92.7, 95.3 HD4. Good evening, Tennessee Valley. Glad to have you along here. The Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Sam Jordan, sitting in for Keon this week, who is on assignment. And we're glad to have you wherever you may be, here in the Tennessee Valley or around the world, and talking about sports. We were talking earlier about high school and college sports, and we just got through talking about NASCAR. And it's always a great topic to talk about, NASCAR. But let's get into the world of the NFL. Monday Night Football is going to be getting underway here around 8:20 or so. We got the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers that are going to be battling it out at the confines of Lambeau Field. One of the most unique football stadiums other than Soldier Field in Chicago that I think you could ever come across. And I've always had the aspiration of trying to make it down to the old Cotton Bowl and Texas Stadium, and now we've got AT&T Field that is the home of the Cowboys, and trying to follow them. And I would love to be able to go see a Cowboys game in Dallas. They're in Arlington, and I think it would be a neat thing to do. I had tickets last year to see the Steelers hosting the Cowboys, and $80 worth of tickets. Got a pair of them for $80 a piece. That's how much NFL tickets are up in the Northeast with the Steelers and with the Browns. And I got sick, could not go. And it's like everybody gave me all kinds of grief. Spent $160 on tickets to see my team, and I couldn't go. So the previous year, I had tickets to go see the New Orleans Saints and the Steelers, and that game was kind of a ho-hum kind of a game back in 2015. And, the Steelers won handedly. We didn't make it to halftime, and it was like I said to my friend that was with us, like, all right, let's go and check out the rest of the stadium. Wanted to see underneath with the museum and with all the different sites that they had there underneath the stadium there in Pittsburgh, and then the Pirates PNC Park right next door, right there along the Lake Erie area, or not Lake Erie, but the Allegheny, and all the different rivers that converge into the point there in downtown Pittsburgh. And it was like really neat. It was a long walk because of the fact you had to go across the bridge, the Pitt Bridge, and then go over to catch a parking spot. And parking wasn't too bad price-wise. Now, I haven't been to a Titans game. Now, my youngest twin son, Samuel, the third, he's a season ticket holder with the Titans and also with the Preds, even though he does not live in Tennessee. You know, before he got transferred with his job out to Arizona, he would fly down from Wilkes-Barre, Scranton International, which is where he worked at. He was a pilot and also did some customer service, and would come down and catch the games. Don't know why he fell in love with Nashville and its sports teams, but he did. And in fact, this past week, he flew from Phoenix out to Nashville to catch a Preds game. It's like, okay. I mean, I've been there to Bridgestone Arena, beautiful arena for hockey. And they've had several country music shows that have been there as well. And it's just a beautiful facility. And got to meet the owner of the Preds and I should say the managing partner of the Preds. And it was a very nice opportunity to be able to participate in that. But, you know, it's just, I digress, you know, talking about, you know, places, you know, where these pro sports teams play at. You know, you got the Cubs with Wrigley Field, Comerica Park in Detroit, where the Tigers play, the old Yankee Stadium, one of those iconic structures, the old original Busch Stadium in St. Louis before they built a new one. In my years of working in pro sports, working with minor league baseball and stuff, I got to see a lot in the Texas League, you know, especially when I was working with the Arkansas Travelers. Never made it to see a Cardinals baseball game, and I wanted to before they tore down the old Busch Stadium and before the new Busch Stadium that's been going for 3 or 4 years, maybe a little longer, I guess. But it's those iconic locations in Williamsport, PA, where I lived at for a number of years. Bowman Field, historic Bowman Field in Williamsport, had the first ever Little League Classic here back in August. You would think living in that town, I could have pulled off a favor in getting tickets to go see the Little League Classic between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pirates I'll root for over the Phillies any day in PA, but my team is the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, the one thing I thought would help me is I've umpired at Lombardy and Volunteer Stadiums for the Little League baseball games that goes on there with the Little League World Series and stuff. And you know, that's an awesome thing to be able to umpire there. So I'm thinking, all right, I know the guys involved with the Williamsport Crosscutters, the vice president and the general manager and the director of marketing, and it's like, they couldn't even help me. And I even called my friends at Little League. Nope, it's just for the kids, their parents, and their coaches of the teams that are participating in the World Series. They did have a few that were given out on a lottery basis. But Bowman Field is the second oldest minor league baseball park in America. The second oldest. And it is one of those stadiums that there's not a bad view anywhere. Place holds a little bit over 2,000 seats, but every seat that you are at is not a bad one. And it's just the intimacy that's involved. So I digress once again, stating, you know, the beautiful confines of Lambeau Field, Green Bay, Wisconsin. The team is owned by the fans. You know, they have a management team that operates the day-to-day operations and everything. But, you know, ever since, Aaron Rodgers got hurt, you know, the team is still trying to find its way in having a successful season. Just haven't been able to do it. And Detroit, you know, was expected to be a decent team this year as well. But they're having a down year because of injuries and so forth. Detroit's 3-4
going into tonight's battle against the Packers, who are 4-3. And, it's just it'll be an interesting game. It will not be a boring game, but I think Green Bay will end up taking tonight's contest. I don't have cable yet, so I'm not going to be able to watch the game. But I tell you what, I haven't watched a whole lot of NFL games this season. I may have caught maybe 4-5 games, maybe. I'm really disappointed with how the NFL has taken their stand in the kneeling process. I just think that, yeah, they may be trying to make a political view, but I think they're doing it in the wrong sense of trying to make this point. I think there's other ways that they can do it. I thought it was very interesting when the Steelers and the Seahawks, both teams, got fined by the NFL $1 million apiece for not being on the field, with one exception. Alejandro Villanueva, one of the linesmen on the Steelers offensive line, he was outside the tunnel on the field, and he was the only one that did not get fined, but he caught the most flack, especially from his teammates and from Coach Tomlin, who I think is not that great of a coach. He inherited a lot of good players, and he's had a good general manager that has found good players out of the college ranks or in trades or free agent signings that have kept the Steelers a relevant team. But I don't think he's that great of a coach, and it's not a race issue. It's not. I mean, some people have made that claim that, the only reason why Tomlin gets picked on, why they want to get rid of him, is because he's black. That's not true. Tomlin does have some good aspects as far as his coaching ability, but I don't think he's the one that's going to take the Steelers to the promised land again. I mean, Bill Cowher has done it a couple of times. Chuck Noll has done it. And even though those two coaches are white, it's nothing to knock Tomlin on because he's gotten them to the Super Bowl, take on the Seahawks here a number of years ago. And it has nothing to do with race. But, the thing with the kneeling, that has nothing to do with the overall sport of football. And, Jerry Jones and Arthur Blank with the Atlanta Falcons, there are two owners that have came out and said that they are not in favor of this for their players to be kneeling. And, it's just that's a huge stand for these two gentlemen, businessmen, and patriots of the sort. Well, your Tennessee Titans, they pulled one off yesterday. They defeated the Baltimore Ravens by a score of 23-20. Marcus Mariota, 218 yards with 2 TDs for the Titans, and it's keeping the Titans first in the AFC South, just barely ahead of Jacksonville and the Jaguars. Jaguars really having a turnaround of a season. They've actually contemplated trying to find a few more names to help them, get to the promised land as far as with the playoffs and everything. Houston's kind of surprised me. Bill O'Brien, who was former head coach at Penn State, where I got to interview him on numerous occasions when he was head coach up there after the Jerry Sandusky incident of the improper contact with young boys. And it also resulted in firing of Joe Paterno, who later on died. I think he was wrongly accused, but, in some ways, O'Brien had a tough job coming in there to turn the Nittany Lions around, and I think he probably did the right thing by getting out of there and moving on down to Houston when the opportunity came, with having that assistant coaching experience with the Patriots and Bill Belichick, and grooming Tom Brady into the quarterback that he is today. But Houston, I really thought they would have had a better season than what they had. Indy, Andrew Luck, he's not the only one on the Colts, but Luck is the one that I guess evidently makes the difference. And Indy and Houston both having subpar seasons. The AFC South is a pretty decent division, but Kansas City, they lost yesterday to my Cowboys 28-17. Chiefs season's not a bad one. They're 6-3 overall. In the AFC West, they lead that division. The Raiders still in Oakland with a 4-5 record, and the former San Diego Chargers now in LA, sharing that stadium with the Rams, who moved from St. Louis. Oakland will be eventually moving to Las Vegas, but Oakland, LA Chargers, and Denver Broncos having tough season so far. Raiders, I thought, would be a little bit better than what they are. I know Keon has talked a little bit on that. Chargers, well, they're just the Chargers. They got Phillip Rivers. They haven't had a good quarterback in San Diego or LA with that version of the Chargers since Dan Fouts. That's just an opinion. Denver Broncos, ever since Peyton Manning retired, and after that Super Bowl, Broncos, they haven't been the same. The backup quarterback to Peyton Manning that they had in Denver, and then he went to Houston, and now who knows where he's at. Just haven't been the same since. And I think that the management team with John Elway leading the way in Denver might have a leash that may be a short one. You never know. But AFC East, kind of a little bit muddied. New England still the top team. They generally will be with a 6-2 record. Buffalo, everybody was thinking Buffalo was going to have a good year. Tyrod Taylor was doing pretty decent. They got LaShawn McCoy, who came over. He was a former Eagles running back and basically ended up on the Buffalo squad here a couple seasons ago. Miami, people thought would be having a much better year than what they are. But they're 4-4. The Jets, it's the Jets. I mean, 4-5. They got a victory over the Bills yesterday, 34-21. So that kind of helped their cause. Buffalo really squandered a good chance to really stay tight with the Patriots, but they weren't able to do that. We were talking about the Steelers earlier. They're 6-2. I really thought the Steelers were going to be more of a 4-4 squad, the way that they were playing. Baltimore, I'm surprised that they're really staying in the games as much as they are. They're 4-5, and with Flacco being out, really hasn't been a good thing for them. The Ravens, losing to the Titans yesterday, just kind of a hit or miss. What team's going to show up? Then you got Cincinnati, who's 3-5. Bengals should have been a lot better than Baltimore, but Cincinnati struggling. The Bengals, in fact, let's see here. Jacksonville 23-7. So Cincinnati dropping to 3-5 on the season. Cleveland, the Browns, I really, truly were going to get a victory early in the season. They were making all kinds of overtures during the offseason, trying to bring in some good talent. And I really thought that the Browns were going to, make some noise. But they're still winless at 0-8. So yesterday, the Browns They were off yesterday, one of several teams that were off, not playing, that is. And they ended up, they'll be back in action here this coming weekend. Scores from other games, the Colts beat the Texans 20-14, which I thought would have went the other way with the Texans winning. The Saints, 6-2 on the year. They defeated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 30-10. Tampa Bay now 2-6 on the season. And I mentioned about Carolina Panthers. Cam Newton seems like he's having a renaissance of a season, and he helped lead the Panthers to a victory over the Atlanta Falcons by a score 20-17. I thought that would be a little bit closer than what the score indicated, even though that's only a 3-point differential. But I really thought it would have been the other way around with the Falcons beating the Panthers. But Atlanta drops to 4-4 on the year. Carolina 6-3. The Rams, the L.A. Rams of all teams, 51-17 over the Giants. Other than the Browns, the Giants are one of the worst teams in the NFL this year. Tom Coughlin, well, he's enjoying things down in Jacksonville, to say the least. And the Giants only with one victory on the season. And so that was amazing in itself, seeing the Rams do what they did to the Giants. The Raiders over the Dolphins, 27-24. Raiders are 4-5. The Dolphins 4-4. The Eagles defeated the Broncos 51-23. The Eagles 8-1. Who would have thought? Broncos 3-5 on the season now. Arizona Cardinals, they are at 4-4. They defeated the 49ers, who may be the worst team, even more worse than the Browns. 20-10 was the score in that game, Arizona winning. And then the big upset special of the day. The Washington Redskins. Kirk Cousins. I didn't know he had it in him. They led comeback and defeated the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. 17-14. Redskins are 4-4. The Seahawks are 5-3. And I bet you Pete Carroll is saying, all right, boys, we're going to be working hard this week to not ever let this happen again. Just saying. I mean, the Seahawks losing to the Redskins. Even though the Redskins have a better record than the Browns and the 49ers and even the Giants, who would have thought? It just that blew my mind when I saw. I didn't actually see it. When I was traveling back down from Pennsylvania yesterday, back here to Chattanooga, and I'm listening into one of the sports stations there in Roanoke, and I hear the post-game show, the Redskins win over the Seahawks. It's like, huh? And, it's just hard to believe that something like that could happen. But like I said earlier in the high school segment when we were talking, you got to play the game. And who wants it the most? Who has got that fire in its belly to take care of things and get that victory? Green Bay, we mentioned earlier, is taking on Detroit in Green Bay. The Packers beat the Lions in Week 17 and captured the NFC North Championship. This evening, both teams are just looking for some relevancy. And Rodgers, with that broken collarbone, has not made things easy for the Packers in their quest to have a successful season this year. Well, who do you think would win tonight's game? I'm going to say Green Bay is going to win 31-14 over the Lions. I don't think the Packers are just going to completely throttle the Lions. Lions are a much better team than you would expect. But I think 31-14 with the Packers winning, being in front of their home crowd at Lambeau, Packers should enjoy that victory tonight without much afterthought. But the Lions are going to give them every bit of run for their money as possible. I appreciate you tuning in and listening to tonight's show, The Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Sam Jordan. Thanks for listening in. Make sure you join me tomorrow night. We will figure out exactly what we're going to be talking about. I encourage you to call in at 800-8949, and let's talk sports here on Nooga Radio 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. The Clutch for Keon Rose. I'm Sam Jordan. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you again tomorrow. Have a great evening.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Chattanooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
And was cut down by gunfire on Baldwin Street last night. And the police say that they've made an arrest. Jamal Mays taken into custody. This is not his first run-in with the law. He's charged with criminal homicide, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. The victim has been identified as 39-year-old Willie Bacon. Initially, the fire department was called to the scene on a report of an unconscious man, but they quickly discovered he had several bullet holes in him. He was dead. A motorcyclist, Gary Fitch, who's 37, was seriously injured after the traffic investigators say he lost control of his motorcycle on Wilcox Boulevard. It left the roadway and then skidded along the road on its side with the rider still on it. Came to a stop eventually, leaving a deep trough in the dirt. Mr. Fitch taken by EMS to the hospital with serious injuries. Russell Stroud, Radio News. Now.
Staying quite mild out there through your nighttime with scattered showers and a few storms moving back in from the north and west. Lows near 62. For Tuesday, a few more scattered showers and thunder showers will pass through. Highs into the lower 70s. Much cooler for Wednesday. Highs upper 50s to near 60. Glass Farm Nursery open daily, closed Sunday. Still has a big selection of pansies and violas, only $14.99 a flat, as well as half off selected trees and shrubs. That's Glass Farm, Highway 11, 4 miles south of Trenton. And I'm Soaring 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Cole.